The Syrian regime is calling it a violation of international law, and Turkish President Erdogan is threatening to nip it in the bud. They're both referring to a plan by the U.S.-led coalition against Islamic State to set up a border force in northern Syria. Here's a clip.
Now the United States has confessed that they are forming a terror army along our border. What we have to do is strangle this terror army on our borders before it is born.
The
announcement that this zone will be controlled by the U.S.-backed groups, by the force up to 30,000 people, this is a very serious issue, which causes concern that a course was set for the partition of Syria.
In what you just heard, they're talking about the new Syrian Border Security Force. The U.S.-led coalition tells us there are about 230 recruits training now, with a goal of about 30,000 over the next several years. Of that, the U.S. expects 15,000 will be made up of those who served in the Syrian Democratic Forces, the SDF. The other half are now being recruited to, in their words, reflect the populations they serve, both in gender and ethnicity. Let's jump back to our senior Middle East correspondent, Mohammed Al-Qasim. Mohammed, you follow Syria very closely. We discussed the future of Syria a lot in the studio. Now we have a point where Erdogan is threatening to end the terror army of a U.S.-led coalition plan. Where do you think this could go from here?
Well, that means most likely that the Turkish military will again enter Syria, and this time to directly engage with the Kurdish fighters inside Syria. This happened before, if you remember, Nurit, we covered it in 2016. That was a campaign dubbed Euphrates Shield, where the Turkish military entered and they engaged in two different fronts. One, they fought against the Islamic State organization, and the other one was against the Kurdish fighters. That campaign ended in March of 2017. Now the Turkish army is massing along the borders, according to some of the Turkish news media, and President Erdogan is not shy about threatening that he will intervene inside Syria to make sure that the Kurdish fighters, of whom the Turkish government considers a terrorist organization with links to the Kurdish fighters inside Turkey, who have been calling for more autonomous control inside Turkey. This will definitely raise the tension between Turkey and its allies in NATO, mainly the United States, but also it will push Turkey closer to Russia, as it has in the last year or so, since Turkey and Russia share the same vision on the Kurdish fighters inside Syria and how Turkey should be dealing with it. And neither one of them, in addition to the Syrian government, supports this decision by the U.S. government.
And Mohammed, we just saw as early as last week, Turkish-backed forces and the Syrian government forces were almost at odds and almost clashing with each other over the violence in Idlib. Now they seem to be on the same page. Are they going to be able to work together, draw together on against this, I guess, common threat?
Well, that shows you, Kalev, the complexity of the situation in Syria. I believe that this will maybe help ease the tension a little bit between Turkey and the Russians in terms of Russia's support of the Assad regime in its military campaign in Idlib. But most likely it will push Turkey toward Russia more, and we will see Turkey join in the negotiations in Sochi at the end of this month, and we'll see what happens next. But I do believe that Turkey now is looking closer and closer towards Russia, because Turkey's goal is making sure that the Kurds inside Syria do not establish a continuous region along its borders with a military as large as 30,000. This is what the U.S. is saying.